couldn't find a better dog. You know what made you such a great dog is you loved us every day, no matter what.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 movie deaths that still hurt.
I know now why you cry, but it's something I can never do.
For this list, we're looking at the most tragic film passings that packed an unforgettably emotional punch. We're focusing exclusively on human deaths from live-action flicks, though, so while Mufasa and Marley's deaths destroyed us, you won't find them here. Plot points will be discussed, so beware of spoilers ahead. Which of these deaths are you still reeling from? Let us know in the comments below. Number 20, Lieutenant Nick "Goose" Bradshaw, Top Gun. Goose and Maverick are the best of pals. The two do practically everything together, like attending Top Gun and flying past the control tower and spooking their superior. It's the type of brotherly love that is often found in the military.
I'll get a visual ID, Cougar, you hook 'em. Roger, and I'll clean 'em and fry 'em.
But the military is dangerous. The two enter a flat spin during an exercise and eject, and while Maverick makes it to safety, Goose slams into the canopy at high speed. The impact kills him, and Maverick suffers intense survivor's guilt. The reactions to the death are just as upsetting as the event itself, with Maverick and Goose's family grieving in equal measure. His passing and legacy was then made into a major subplot in Top Gun Maverick, resulting in buckets of tears.
Thank you for saving my life. That's what my dad would have done.
Number 19, Emma Greenway Horton, Terms of Endearment. Deborah Winger received a Best Actress Oscar nomination for playing the wickedly sympathetic Emma Greenway Horton. Emma has a fraught but ultimately loving relationship with her domineering mother, Aurora. And she remains close to Aurora as she goes through painful transitions in her personal life.
And they get wonderful jobs. You can go right across the state to Colorado and have it.
I don't know why I tell you anything. I mean, I seem to like you less and less, Mom.
Not only is she cheated on, but she's eventually diagnosed with cancer at a relatively young age. Her mother is there to support her as she weakens from the sickness and eventually dies, and it all proves unbelievably difficult. It's hard to see a parent losing their child, and the respective performances bring a highly uncomfortable aura of realism to the tragedy. This death may hit a little too close to home for many, but then again, great art often does.
So stupid. So stupid. Somehow I thought when she finally went, that it would be a relief.
Number 18, Apollo Creed, Rocky IV. Rocky IV was easily the goofiest film in the Rocky franchise, eschewing reality in favor of ridiculous Cold War metaphors, a Terminator-esque opponent, and a talking robot. That being said, it still found time for drama, represented by the death of Apollo Creed.
If he dies, he dies.
We watched Apollo grow throughout the Rocky series from cocky villain to mentor, and he eventually became Rocky's closest friend. When Rocky lost Apollo, he lost a part of himself, and the rest of the movie is devoted to exploring his grief in isolation, both physically and mentally.
Because I'm a fighter. That's the way I'm made, Adrian. That's what you married. We can't change what we are.
Rocky was never the same after Apollo's death, and it still hurts to think about. Number 17, Shelby Eatonton Latchery, Steel Magnolias. With the help of an iconic cast, Steel Magnolias tells a devastating story about sisterhood and sickness. In one of her earliest roles, Julia Roberts plays Shelby Eatonton Latchery, a young woman with type 1 diabetes.
Your poor body has been through so much. Why would you deliberately do this to yourself?
Diabetics have healthy babies all the time.
You are special, Shelby. There are limits to what you can do.
The character was modeled after the sister of author and screenwriter Robert Harling, who passed away in 1985. Like Harling's sister, Shelby also passes away from the effects of diabetes. The character suffers fatal complications following the birth of her child and an organ transplant. It's a horrendous death that's impossible to be indifferent to. When her family finally decides to take her off life support, there is not a dry eye in the house.
Jackson, you're gonna have to get her pink suit. The one with the little red cherries on the pail.
Number 16, Jack Twist, Brokeback Mountain. Jack Twist meets Ennis Del Mar on the titular Brokeback Mountain, and it's love at first sight. But there are more than a few problems. This is the 1960s in the prototypically masculine American West, and Ennis and Jack are both cowboys. It's a flurry of obstacles that prevents them from openly embracing each other, and the resulting story is one of complete tragedy.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
After years of on and off hesitant romance, Jack dies in a freak accident while changing a tire. Or, at least, that's what Jack's wife tells Ennis. Ennis believes that he was violently killed. The ambiguity makes it all the more tragic, not only taking away Ennis's true love, but also preventing him from getting any real closure.
He used to say he wanted his ashes scattered on Brokeback Mountain, but I wasn't sure where that was.
Number 15, Maggie Fitzgerald, $1 Million Baby. This boxing film from Clint Eastwood makes a major plot detour that comes with incredible emotional power. At first, $1 Million Baby seems like a typical boxing movie about an underprivileged underdog who defeats her personal demons in the ring.
The truth is, my brother's in prison. My sister cheats on welfare by pretending one of her babies is still alive. My daddy's dead and my mama weighs 312 pounds.
But a freak accident occurs during a title fight, and Maggie breaks her neck on a stool. Unwilling to live with quadriplegia, she asks that her trainer Frankie end her life, and he eventually acquiesces. The hospital sequences are hauntingly performed by Hilary Swank and Clint Eastwood, and the unexpected and controversial ending is a major tonal whiplash from the uplifting material that came before. This whiplash made $1 Million Baby a classic whose ending is still widely referenced to this day.
He gave her a single shot. It was enough adrenaline to do the job a few times over. We didn't want her going through this again.
Number 14, The Terminator, Terminator 2, Judgment Day. James Cameron is a brilliant filmmaker. Not only did he give deep humanity to a killer robot, but he also crafted a touching story about fatherhood through the lens of a sci-fi action epic.
It would always be there, and it would die to protect him.
The Terminator becomes a loving and deeply protective father figure to John, and they share one of the most gut-wrenching goodbyes in the history of cinema. Knowing that he has to die to save the future, the Terminator orders that Sarah lower him into a vat of molten steel. Everything about the scene is legendary, including the music, the respectful handshake between Sarah and the Terminator, and of course, the iconic thumbs up. Hasta la vista indeed. Number 13, Guido Orefice, Life is Beautiful. Roberto Benigni was the first man to win the Best Actor Oscar for a non-English showing, and he did it playing Guido Orefice. Guido is sent to a concentration camp with his young son Josue, but in order to preserve his childish innocence, Guido pretends that it's all a big game.
Comincia il gioco. Chi c'è? Chi non c'è, non c'è. Ihr seid nur aus einem einzigen Grund in dieses Lager transportiert worden? Si vince a 1000 punti. Il primo classificato vince un carro armato, vero?
He maintains the ruse until the very end, even while he's being literally taken to his death. He spots Josue watching and quickly gets back into character, doing a goofy walk for his son before he's killed. We're spared the visual, but that image of his final defiant walk is simply unforgettable. It's an incredible visual metaphor for the challenges and ultimate rewards of fatherhood. Number 12, Noah Calhoun and Allie Hamilton, The Notebook. This classic Nicholas Sparks story chronicles the bittersweet lives of Noah Calhoun and Allie Hamilton. It's your classic poor boy, rich girl story, but with a twist. The core narrative is being told through flashbacks, and we eventually learn that it's being recounted by the elderly Noah to the now dementia-ridden Allie.
You don't think it'll help?
No, I don't.
She remembers, Doc. I read to her, and she remembers.
Sometime after the tale is complete, Noah joins Allie in bed, and they die together while holding hands. Sure, maybe it's a little sappy, but it's also really beautiful and heart-wrenching, and that ending will forever live rent-free in our collective heads. Dementia is a horrible disease, and The Notebook is one of its defining portrayals in pop culture.
Do you think our love could take us away together?
Number 11, Neil Perry, Dead Poets Society. With a mature and reserved Robin Williams playing John Keating, Dead Poets Society tells a story about the power of literature and the soul-eating effects of demanding expectations. The latter comes through in the story of Neil Perry. Neil suffers at the hands of his cruel father, who demands absolute perfection and studious obedience from his son.
You're playing the part of the dutiful son. I know this sounds impossible, but you have to talk to him. You have to show him who you are, what your heart is.
The demands weigh heavily on Neil's psyche, especially when he's pulled from the boarding school for getting too attached to acting. physically and emotionally shattered, Neil proceeds to take his own life. This results in a horrific reaction from his parents, and the scene is flawlessly performed by Kurtwood Smith and Carla Belver. This sequence cuts right to the heart and is realistic enough to chill your blood.
No, oh, my son! My son, my poor son! He's all right! He's all right! He's all right!
Stop it! Number 10. Sirius Black, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Poor Harry Potter. He finally gets a loving family member in his godfather, Sirius Black, only for him to be ripped away at the hands of Bellatrix Lestrange. Sirius's end comes in the climactic battle at the Ministry of Magic, when Bellatrix hits him with the killing curse. The curse takes effect, and Sirius dies before we even know what happened. The confusion only adds to the tragedy, as we, like Harry, enter a state of shock. We don't want to believe it, but he is indeed actually dead, and our hearts are left broken. But the pain wasn't over, as we were then forced to watch the deaths of both Dumbledore and Dobby in subsequent films. We're not over them either.
He is happy to be with his friend, Harry Potter.
Number 9. Wolverine Logan, Logan. Logan served as a bookend of sorts for the superhero genre. X-Men basically kickstarted the movement, and Logan closed a chapter in its history. It was as much a superhero story as it was a comment on the genre itself, which grew up, became hardened, and eventually passed the baton to a new generation.
Take your friends and run.
Logan's death served as both this metaphorical baton passing and the culmination of nearly 20 years worth of superhero stories and character work.
What do they call you? Wheels? This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
This movie showed us an aging superhero well past his prime and resigned to his tragic fate, and it made for some pretty bleak viewing.
You still have time.
Charles, the world is not the same as it was.
People literally grew up with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, and it was incredibly tough to see him go. Number 8. Jack Dawson, Titanic. Spoiler alert, the Titanic sinks. We all knew that going in, so we all figured that one of the two main characters would die. But that didn't make Jack's death any less despairing.
I will never let go, Jack.
Maybe it's the way he dies. He continues to protect Rose until the very end, sacrificing himself so Rose can lay on the drifting door. We're then forced to watch him freeze to death. And let us tell you, that did not make for easy viewing.
There's a boat, Jack.
By the end, we're left listening to Rose's desperate and pained cries as she realizes that her love has died. And Kate Winslet perfectly captures the pain and confusion of such a tragic event.
Come back. Come back. Come back.
Number 7. Thomas J. Sennett, My Girl. There are very few things in life more tragic than the death of a child.
It hurts. It hurts so bad. Make it stop.
While searching for Veda's mood ring, Thomas kicks a bee's nest, and its occupants proceed to sting him numerous times, resulting in a fatal allergic reaction. It's not so much the death scene itself that stirs the emotions, as we don't really see anything except Thomas flailing around and his glasses falling to the ground.
Wait. Ow. Get away.
It's Veda's reaction that really tugs at the heartstrings, and Anna Klumsky sells her pain with acting skills far beyond her age. That scene in the funeral home has been indelibly ingrained in our brains since childhood, and we can't help but get emotional every time we think about it.
Put his glasses on. Put on his glasses. He was going to be an acrobat.
Number 6. Brooks Hatlin, The Shawshank Redemption. Brooks served more as a symbol than a fully realized character. He represents the fragility of change and the inability to adapt, especially in inmates who've been locked up for decades. Brooks was imprisoned for 50 years and has incredible difficulty adjusting to the modern world and his newfound freedom.
Dear fellas, I can't believe how fast things move on the outside.
In one of the most heartbreaking montages in film history, we watch him struggle with everyday traffic, loneliness, nightmares, and his job as a grocery bagger.
My hands hurt most of the time.
Make sure your man double bags. Last time he didn't double bag and the bottom near came out.
Make sure you double bag.
His final words serve as a painful statement for battling anxieties and thoughts about taking one's own life. And it is profoundly personal for anyone who's gone through such a tragic event.
I doubt they'll kick up any fuss. Not for an old crook like me.
Number 5. Johnny Cade, The Outsiders. S.E. Hinton's novel The Outsiders has always been praised for deftly conveying tragedy and mature themes for younger audiences. Perhaps the most important aspect of the story is Johnny's redemption.
Let's do it for Johnny, man. We'll do it for Johnny.
Johnny and the Greasers save a group of children from a burning church, and Johnny suffers fatal injuries. His impending death causes him to repurpose his priorities. Not only does he stop caring about the senseless gang drama, he also tells Ponyboy to stay gold.
Stay gold? Ponyboy. Stay gold.
His death allows Ponyboy to live, not to mention the children, and stay gold has remained one of the most iconic quotes in children's literature. It's clear that Johnny's lessons touched not only Ponyboy, but the entire world at large. Number 4. Bruno and SHMUEL, The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas. Movies don't get much darker than this. It tells the story of Bruno and SHMUEL, two young boys who are caught in the midst of the Holocaust. Bruno is a young German who's indoctrinated with anti-Semitic propaganda, yet he befriends the imprisoned SHMUEL.
Are you not allowed out? Why? What have you done? I'm a Jew.
One day, Bruno decides to help SHMUEL find his missing father, but the two are ferried into a gas chamber.
It's alright. I think we're just waiting in here until the rain stops.
Clothes off!
The Holocaust is undoubtedly one of the most tragic events in human history, and by telling the story through the perspective of two children, it allows viewers a more personal glimpse into its utter depravity. This movie perfectly highlights the duality of humanity, its empathy and senseless wickedness, which makes for some truly unforgettable viewing.
We're not supposed to be friends, you and me. We're meant to be enemies.
Number 3. Tony Stark, Iron Man, Avengers Endgame. Well, we all knew it was coming, but it still hurt. Much like Logan's death, Iron Man's serves as a thematic statement regarding the history of superhero films in the 21st century, perhaps even more so.
You won, Mr. Stark. You won. You did it, sir. You did it.
The Marvel Cinematic Universe began with Robert Downey Jr.'s endlessly charismatic Tony Stark, and Phase 3 ended with his sacrificial demise.
Iron Man.
The death is certainly sad from a pure storytelling perspective, but it's also sorrowful for what it represents, the symbolic end of what we've come to know as the MCU. Sure, we still have about 1 billion movies to go, but nothing will recapture the cinematic magic of watching the MCU develop throughout the 2010s.
I'm hoping if you play this back, it's in celebration.
Number 2. Jenny Curran, Forrest Gump. Despite all his accomplishments and all that he saw, Forrest always returned to Jenny. Forrest was no stranger to death, having seen both his mother and Bubba pass away. But it's Jenny's death that truly made an impact, both on Forrest and the viewer.
I wish I could have been there with you.
You were.
While we don't see Jenny's actual death, the final moments between her and Forrest are gorgeous, and the montage where Forrest talks to her grave is one of the saddest yet most uplifting montages in film.
And every night we read a book. You're so smart, Jenny. You'd be so proud of him. I am.
Tom Hanks is simply spellbinding, selling every last bit of Forrest's sadness and loneliness, but also his penchant for bravery. Like Forrest says, dying is just a part of life. We just wish it weren't.
Mama always said dying was a part of life. I sure wish it was.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. John Coffey, The Green Mile. There's just something about Stephen King's old-timey prison stories that really gets the waterworks going. The death of the innocent, childlike, and literally magical John Coffey is one of cinema's saddest moments. So many aspects of the scene are downright tear-inducing, including the crying officers, the swelling music, the dramatic sparks, and of course, the iconic line,
"Please, boss, don't put that thing over my face. Don't put me in the dark. I was afraid of the dark."
John Coffey is the very personification of love and kindness, and while he recognizes humanity's cruelness and penchant for sin, he decides to die as a scapegoat.
He kill them with their love. That's how it is every day, all over the world.
Sound familiar? The biblical allusions allow the story to permeate more effectively, all but ensuring that we never forget the sacrifice of poor John Coffey. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.